Hallo Cliquenabendler, wir sitzen jetzt hier bei Mighty Boards. Neben mir sitzt der Mike. Hallo Mike.
Hi, hello, bro.
Posthuman, der eine oder andere kennt es vielleicht. Hier haben wir im Prinzip die erste Edition. In dem Fall Posthuman 2, Second Edition. Kickstarter, available next year. Also man merkt, wir führen das Interview jetzt auf Englisch. Mike ist natürlich lieber, wenn wir es auf Englisch führen. Kein Problem. Kickstarter next year.
Yes, first quarter of next year, so probably it will be around March.
Yes.
We have nearly everything ready, so the game is ready, designed. The artwork, most of it is ready. So we're ready to go. We just need to do some more testing, just refine it a bit, and we're there.
First question, first edition, second edition, why the difference?
Why? Right. After the first edition, which was released about 2 years ago, we had feedback from people. We always wanted to change some of the things from the first one. We thought of doing a second edition, but then we thought, like, why do a second edition when we can do a sequel instead? So it's the story continues, and also change some of the things that maybe weren't happy with, or people weren't happy with in the first one. So instead of just reissuing Posthuman 1 as a second edition, we decided to continue the story. So people who bought Posthuman 1, instead of having to kind of buy the same thing again, they can buy like a continuation of the story.
Okay.
So it's fair, I think, on the on our backers.
And this is a prototype, not the final versions. It's
No, not
important.
a prototype.
And you have a storybook also here.
Yes.
But later we will see.
Yeah, we'll
it.
talk about it later.
Okay, but how it works, the game?
Right. So for our backers of Posthuman 1, the system is similar. For those who don't know it yet, you have each player has his own journey. So if we are more players, they have their own tiles that they place in front of them, and you can scout. You have actions. So you have these 4 actions. Okay, and these are what you can do in your turn. So you can either scout, and when you scout, you get more tiles. What's different from the first one is this time, instead of having to put them down as soon as you scout, you keep them in your hand, and you can play them whenever you want. Okay. The next action is moving, so you can decide to move. So you play a tile, the roads have to match, and you move on to the next one. Whenever you move, you get an encounter. I will come back to that later. The next thing is foraging, so you can stay where you are and simply try and find more things in the area. And the last one is to camp. Again, you stay where you are and you try and heal. In the first one it was just health and morale. In this one we have a lot more things you can get when you camp. We'll talk about that later. Right, so you move into it there. If you are still, so you start, this is your personal journey. And over here, this is the track that you're moving along with respect to other players. So here is where you see how far you are with respect to other players. But this is actually where you are. So this is you're in a forest and so on. Over here you have the level of encounters that you are going to encounter. So if I'm going to move here, and I have a level 1 encounter. So I take a level 1 encounter from here. And these have changed as well from the previous one. So now we have, for each, we have different dice. So we have the green dice, the blue dice, the orange dice, and the black dice, and the white dice. And these, so each encounter that you have has different dice. So this one will roll a white die and an orange die. What's the difference? Well, the green dice are more defensive, so generally they're going to roll more defense dice. These could be more powerful, so they have more attacks, double attacks. So we could give the encounters more differentiation, more variation in how they attack. Besides that, they have something which is bonus, so he has a bonus 2 damage. And the fighting is going to be like this now. It's much more interesting. It's not just luck, so you don't just roll dice. So you know he's going to roll a white and an orange, and you know roughly what they do. And he also has 2 damage. So I know already that he's going to hit me with 2 damage. So what do? in my case, the player does not roll dice anymore, like in Posthuman 1. That was one comment that we had in 1, that it was maybe a bit too complex, the system of the dice. In this case, you have these cards, these combat cards. And what you have depends on your stats. So if I have a high melee, I get 2 special combat cards. If I have a high range, I get another 2 combat cards. So everyone starts with 6, and then you get 2 more according to where you are over here. And if I decide to play, so in this case, for example, it has 2 damage, so I decide to play something that can stop that. So I decide to play 2 defense to block that damage. The second phase is the encounter rolls.
Yeah.
So I had get those dice.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost. Okay. So we have an attack and a miss.
Yeah.
And now my second card, I have to take it randomly from here.
Okay.
So the first one I decided. So it's part of the fight where you're preparing, so you know what's coming and you prepare for it. The second one you don't know what's coming because they roll the dice. And I'm going to try and get something from here. Now it's random, yes, but this depends on what you have left. So when you make a choice on what I play here, I also know what I have left here. So I'm removing that from here. But it's a secure choice. So I take a card from here and I get 2 damage.
Yeah.
Now so far I have no attacks. He has 1 attack. I have 2 defense, so I block his damage, so nothing happens to me. But I did not attack him back because I don't have an attack sign like this. However, I have my weapon as well. And my weapon has 1 attack on it, automatic, plus 1 damage. So in this case, our attack is the same,
Yeah.
which means we both do attacks on each other. He gives me 2 damage, but I block it,
Yeah.
because I prepared for that from before. And I give him 3 damage, because I have 1, 2, 3. And he doesn't have any blocks. His health is 2,
Ah, okay.
so I killed the encounter. Okay, so that was a good encounter in our case. So this is one of the things that changed from the old one. Before it was he rolls an amount of dice, I roll an amount of dice, and that's it. Now there's choice from your encounters. You build your deck.
Yeah.
So now I know that the card that I used, the card that you used was very important. You throw it away, it's discarded. The one that you chose.
Yeah.
The one that you dealt randomly, it goes back in your deck. So now my deck is getting depleted. When you rest, when you camp, you can decide to get 3 things back. One of them is your combat card. The other thing would be health and morale, same as the other one. Another thing you can get back is these boosts. This is a new thing again in this Kickstarter, in this Posthuman 2. So if you have a 4 or a 5, they give you 1 or 2 boosts, depends if it's a 4 or 5. And you can use these as an extra. So for example, a boost on the melee gives you an extra attack. So I could, if I didn't have enough attacks, I could have taken this boost and added an attack on that. And I get these back when I rest. I throw them away. When I rest, I can decide to get a boost back onto that. And they all give you, each stat gives you a different boost. So this gives you extra damage, this gives you extra attacks, this gives you extra attacks on range, and so on. Okay. What else changed maybe in this one? Okay, so another kind of encounter you can have is, let me find one, is a narrative encounter. It's a story.
Okay.
So in that case, what happens is you throw the dice.
Story. Okay.
You throw the dice, it's a 6.
6.
And it has been to go to story 52, and there is a storybook.
Okay.
So while in the first one we had the story on the card,
Yes, I think so.
now we have a storybook.
Okay.
And you go to story 52.
Okay.
This is of course a prototype.
Yes, but
Yeah, there's many, there's going to be around 100 stories.
okay.
And the good thing is, what we could do with this is that now we could have a way to link the stories to each other, because they're not on the card, they're in here. So now if there's a story, if I go to story 50, it might tell me to, for example, take a counter. Take a counter, for example, I don't know. These are just for now, obviously. So it tells me to take a counter K,
Yeah.
and I place it here. Next time I pick a story card like this, it will ask me if I have a counter.
Yeah.
And if I have a counter, it will ask me to go to a particular story.
Okay.
So in that case, I will find that it will continue the story from the previous one.
Okay.
So that makes the storytelling a much better process rather than. What else have we changed? Yes, we've also changed the when you do have a challenge. So these will give you a challenge most of the time,
Yeah.
where you have to use your mind or your speed. So it's not always based on fighting. And in that case, we had, which we, I don't know where they are. Sorry, we lost the bag. Okay, so we have a bag with counters.
Yeah.
And when you do a challenge, you take out a counter every time. And depending on what you have here, you have a number of successes or fails. Now the way we did it is that you don't know, so someone else reads them for you. So they tell you, okay, so you follow, so let's see, let's find one. So the mouth of the cave is daubed with strange symbols. You cannot make out any of them, but the words "no human" are scrawled on the ground below your feet clear enough. A deep low hum emanates from the darkness within. Despite your better judgment, you are strangely drawn to the cave. Do you venture into the cave or leave? And we don't tell the person what to do. So they know it's based on fear, maybe. Do I venture or not? And then when they decide, you tell them, okay, this is a mind challenge. And now if they have good mind, obviously they can deal with it. And they start picking up tokens from the bag. Okay, so the first one might be success. And generally you need 3 successes. So whoever is reading this will tell you, okay, you need 3 successes to do this, or 2 successes to do this. And you start pulling out of the bag. Some of them are some are their clear success, some of them are a clear fail. Others are a success if you are 3 or over in mind, or 4 or over in mind, or 5 or over in mind. So obviously, if you have better mind, you have better chance of succeeding. So you tend to choose this depending on your abilities. So if I know it is dependent on speed and my speed is not good, I might back away from it because I know I'm slow, so I'm not going to manage this. If I'm not intelligent, I'll back away because I'm not intelligent. If I'm intelligent, I'll risk it, because I think I can do it. And you start taking successes, and if you get a number of successes according to this, then you succeed. You can even go over and get a bonus. So let's say I succeeded easily, so I can do one more, try one more, and get a bonus on it, like extra food or whatever. Okay. Or you can fail. Now, if you fail, if you get 3 fails, there's something bad happening to you. Okay. So it's just, you can have a neutral fail where you didn't manage, or you could have you botched it basically, and you get something better. You lose something, lose some equipment, or lose some stat and so on. That's mainly the other difference from 1 is instead of events we have a weather track now, and you roll a weather die every turn, and this means you move 2 on the weather. And something happens, like if it's rainy, you cannot move, you lose some morale if you're moving. And we also have aggravate. And if you aggravate, you move onto the aggravate section, it becomes worse. From rain, it becomes thunderstorm, so it becomes even worse. So we try and have this streamline instead of having random weathers, where suddenly it's a heat wave and then the next time it's like a snowstorm, which doesn't make sense. We try to have the weather moving along a line. So that changed. What else changed? Mutations changed. Now if you become a mutant, in 1 you used to play against the other players. Most people didn't like that, some liked it, we know, but most people didn't like that because it kind of changed the game for them too much. So now you keep on playing, but when you arrive here, every time you get a mutation, you have a mutation track here, which you turn over here. As soon as you come to 5, you become a mutant, but you keep playing the game in the same way. So what happens is you lose your weapons, depending on the type of mutant you become. In the beginning of the game you take an archetype card, and the other players don't know what you are, but you know that if you mutate you're going to become this type of mutant, which is like a strong mutant, but a bit dumb, a bit dull. So in every mutation you get a plus on the stat, for example, and then you get another plus but 2 minuses, and you start mutating. So your character changes, but you keep playing. Some of them might tell you may only use mutant weapons. So now you lose all your weapons, and you can only use these which are mutant weapons. So you can use your mutant arm, okay? And then you go to a different track. So if you're human, you have to finish here in the outpost. If you become a mutant, you have to go to the slave camps, which are where mutants end up. These are going to eventually then lead to our expansions. We have already 2 expansions planned. One of them will probably be released during the same Kickstarter. And these expansions then will deal with what happens in those situations. I think that is mainly all the changes in the game.
It's not language independent. Are there plans for other languages? I think that the storybook in English, perhaps in French.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter will definitely be in English. We are already trying to make deals with distributors. There's a lot of interest though, so we'll probably for sure have it in different languages. What we don't know, so for distribution later, we'll probably have it in different languages. We don't know about Kickstarter yet. We're trying to see how we can do this to get different language if possible. But yeah, the only thing we know for sure is it's going to be in English. But I mean, things we can do with this one that makes it easier as well is we could have this translated, which is much easier, and put it as a PDF. So it's much easier than having them on the cards, you know. So it's easier to translate. So I hope that would be a better deal for our German friends, obviously, because we had a lot of support from Germany and a lot of interest from Germany about Posthuman. So obviously we're very keen to make this available and to make this a good deal for them as well. Okay.
Good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for supporting Posthuman 1. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.